Hi, this is Mira and Gregg, and I'm Greg, and this is Mira. And we are two different professionals from different backgrounds, and we'd like to periodically come together and have discussions and see if we can make any progression towards some of the disagreements that we have in general. Quick background for me: I'm a former Navy SEAL. I did 21 years as active duty Navy SEAL, and then retired in 2017. After retirement, immediately went to undergrad, have an undergrad from Florida Institute of Technology in pre-law, got me interested in political science, and now I'm currently working on my master's degree at the American Graduate School in Paris, and I got to meet Mira here. Mira?
Yeah, thank you. And you didn't mention that you're working on something great and fascinating, which is the game theory. And and I really hope that in one of the sessions or the episodes, you will explain it a little bit more. So me and some other people can understand a little bit what it is. So I'm Mira. I'm a feminist. This is like my first word of presentation for some years now. I'm a sociologist and I've done all my studies in Switzerland, now that I think. So my bachelor and my PhD in social sciences. But something common with Greg is that I've also done some studies, some research in US. I had a Fulbright scholarship, which is something that I'm really proud of because it's not something common. And it was a great experience, one of my best ones. It was in New York, and I know that Greg is not a huge fan of New York, but for me it was fantastic. Yes, smile, please.
I'm smiling. All right, great, thank you. So one of the things that brings Mira and I together so much is our passion for political science, international relations, international political science, if you will. And one topic that's been late in the news is that of the transgenders in the military. And Mira having such a strong background in gender studies and myself having a background as a retired military veteran, we thought we'd get together and discuss the idea of transgender in the military and what does that mean. And from my perspective, this session is going to start out with a lot of Mira's opinion because Mira clearly has studied this, what I say, the differences of genders, and that's something that's not new to me, but I don't have an educated ability to discuss it. So with that being said, Mira, I'm going to ask you a question or two and turn the tables on me anytime you want, and let's see where it goes. So what is a transgender? Simple breakdown.
A human being.
Good answer.
Yeah. Yeah, you know that I'm good with words when it's needed, but no, I'm saying a human being because I think that this is one of the biggest misunderstanding when we talk about the rights, for example, of transgender or LGBTIQ. And like in parentheses, I will use a lot this acronym LGBTIQ, even if personally I would prefer it a little bit longer, but I'm keeping it official as in the European Commission, where I work sometime as a consultant, so I'm not an internal person. But there they use LGBTIQ, so I said, okay, let's find this common understanding, and I keep it there. And there is this misunderstanding, and I've noticed it in so many meetings or trainings that I've done about this topic, that people think that when we talk about the rights of LGBTIQ, including transgender, which is the T in the LGBTIQ, people in general think these are some specific rights. In fact, no, it's like the human rights of everyone else. I remember once that we were discussing about human rights, and you were saying that our understanding of human rights is a little bit different, and a bit different in the sense that I don't know, it's not that you are more severe, but no, do you say severe in English?
Maybe you mean more serious. I'm not sure.
In the sense of Okay, you know it, and I think that it's understandable what I want to say, but and I always try to keep it within the framework of what UN says about human rights and blah blah blah. So just to not make any kind of error in the sense that okay, we're not inventing things, even though I think that what is the UN framework, it's so limiting to my point of view. But then you know me that my point of view is huge. And in parentheses, this is something that will help people to understand what we will say from now on. Is that Greg is I said once that he's a pessimist and realist, but then he said is a pragmatist. So yeah, and I am a quixotic, as Greg says, which means overly idealistic. But again, in parentheses, and you will get used with my parentheses a lot, is that I was reading by chance, like when fate works. I was reading Fyodor Dostoevsky about a diary of the writer, and he was saying that it's not true that a realist and an idealist are enemies. On the contrary. So, and I will bring you the quote. It was great, but when he said it, I mean, yes. So it's not me, it's Dostoevsky. Yeah. So that was very nice. Going back to the transgender. So it's a human being with all the human rights of everyone else. So no specific rights. So no rights that are specific to this group. Just the human rights that me and you we have, in the sense that none of us is a transgender person. So we agree on this. And what is a transgender? So a transgender, in the sense of a definition, a very simple definition, is someone that was assigned the gender of male or female at birth because of their genitalias. And then while growing up, they understood that they don't fit within what it means to be a female gender identity or a male gender identity. So it's not an intersex, which means that you have both male and female genitalias. It's not gay. It might be gay or it might be lesbian, but it's a person who the gender identity is not what was assigned in birth. So if you were assigned to be a boy, so male, let's say, which is the biological assignment, and you grow up and you understand that you really don't fit to the gender identity of a boy because you feel more a girl. And then you decide to transition if you want to transition, if it's possible in your society to transition. And I think that the possibility it's mostly in what we call the developed countries, but not necessarily. Because there are some countries where there is a third gender, and in general it's a transgender person. For example, in India. I'm not saying that India is not a developed country, because the concept of develop and developing is so subjective, but it's not a Western in what we call Western. So in the military, and I was reading the executive order again, and I saw that the expression a man that feels like a woman. Why it's always men, like the reference? Why in the executive order it was not a woman that feels like a man?
You have the entirety of the quote, because
let me
organizations seem to find that to be an appropriate thing to do. So I'm not saying that's the case. I'm just asking. So can I ask a couple of questions? Because
yes.
I definitely have. Well, first off, my first question is really sarcastic. So let's let it happen. You said LGBTQ.
LGBTIQ.
And you said you wish it could be longer, but my initial question was, what are transgender? And you said human.
Yeah.
So you wish it was shorter.
Oh, I'd love to live in a society that we are all humans and there is no such distinctions that then brings inequality. And you know that I hate the word.
Where are we putting the S at? LGBTQ SIA or L? Where's the S?
What is the S?
We're straight. If we're all humans and we're all people, we're all gendered.
You're not a minority. We're not.
With this acronym.
Because it's about people that, first of all, is a minority and is being discriminated. And we, and I'm saying we for you and me as heterosexual, as much as I don't want to label myself, which I hate to do this. And
Okay,
even
I said that was a sarcastic question. So
no, I'm joking because you know that also, you know, one of my expression that I really, not my expression, one of my feminist mentors of mine, she was saying always woman is my slave name. And this is what I believe in the sense of, no, don't roll your eyes.
no, I was just understanding what you were saying. I wasn't judging you. That'll come later on.
No, yeah, in the sense of what is ascribed to be a woman in some societies and maybe not.
And
So
that's
that's the
really
idea.
that's really my real question. My next question, so you gave the the descriptive of what I wrote down as gender at birth. What is, and you gave two options only as gender at birth. So gender at birth, are there any other options, as you know, as a scientist?
In fact, I would say mostly sex, assigned sex at birth, because it's not yet gender, as I believe that gender is a social construct. So if we say, like, what we assign at birth, we see at if the baby has a vagina or a penis, and then we say male or female. So that's it.
Okay, so at
And
birth,
then,
there are only
yeah,
two sexes.
sexes.
And what
And
you
then,
said as gender in the past is now sex. Okay, that's fine.
and
And
then,
there's
no,
probably
please.
some, I'm sure there's some aberrations in, I've heard of, what is it, hermaphrodites and people of that
Yeah.
nature. That's the physical aberration that does not describe the person as either their gender or their sex. Not in fact, so as far as you understand, there's male and female at birth. That's, I guess, the first thing I want
In
to.
Yeah, in most of societies, it is. I think that what I was referring to intersex, it's mostly what you were saying, hermaphrodites. But I think that before I'm saying because Greg and me are almost the same age. What generation are we? Gen Z, X? I don't know.
Generation
X,
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 Gen X,
X.
Gen
Yeah,
X.
I
Correct.
think we're the best one. But anyway,
Well, did you?
no, I mean, when I was a child, etc., so we were learning at school hermaphrodites, and for me was something that I could not understand. By the way, I come from a communist country, so the knowledge that we were getting sometimes was really shaped to fit to the ideology of the state. So now I think that we refer mostly to intersex persons when there is not a specific, they might have both male and female, so biological traits and organs. Organs, yes.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, sure. Okay, well, I mean, that definitely answers some of what I'm wanting to know, just so I could have a starting ground, because I'm not the expert in transgender or genders or sexes, clearly. But I'm happy to have the discussion with the limitations I have in that, because the question is really, where does this come in with transgender in the military? And that's where I think we should kind of start opening this up a little bit. So there's a couple of different news articles that were out recently. One with the introduction of the introduction of the introduction of the new president, President Trump, and his new cabinet, to include Pete Hegseth, who's made statements both about the military, the transgender issue, and then Trump making basically executive order that removes the opportunity for transgenders to be active duty members. So from my perspective, it seems like it's a little bit of a difficult proposition to have transgender in the military. And I would say that is, almost the same thing as having a famous person in the military. Because my understanding is that if you're working on a career or having an entire second career while in the military, that's probably a better example. When you're in the military, you have to dedicate a great deal of time, a great deal of focus, and a lot of that includes excluding things from what regular people do in life. I mean, the idea of a military person having a strong social media account, right before I left the military or the middle of my career, it was deemed to be, not really acceptable. In fact, you weren't supposed to have them right off the bat. that got quickly reduced to you can't have any political opinions, or you have to separate yourself from your military self, meaning you can't have photographs of yourself in uniform or doing anything that you would be doing on active duty or describing that for the reasons of security to their position, the country, and general uniformity of the behavior that the military wants people to have. I mean, I could go in it further, but at this point, if you have any questions about it, let me know.
No, I mean, I totally agree. And I was having this discussion like 2 days ago when I was doing my most recent tattoo, and the tattoo artist, he was in the military, and we were discussing about what you said when we discussed last time that the military, it's kind of out of the society. And I was like, what are you saying? Because for sociologist that I am, like, what's this? So, and he was saying the same thing to me, like, you're a little bit out of society. So when you finish your services, okay, for him it was just 3 years. But anyway, so he said that it was so difficult to go back. So I understand that it's, I don't know how to say it. It's not a sector, but an area of the society again, but maybe completely different from the other areas that is very specific. But, and I understand, and I agree with what you said, so that it's, if you're famous, it might, like, I don't know, be a kind of obstacle, etc., because you're not there to show or to have people taking pictures of you or like appreciating your, I don't know, beauty. But my problem with transgender persons in the military, but not my problem with transgender persons in the military, but why this is considered as something so difficult or so unacceptable, and I'm also related it to the last executive order, is that why people think that being a trans man would hamper your ability to serve as straight man. And when I say straight, it's like, because if I say straight, it means that the other are not straight in the sense that they are distorted. So that's a kind of a conceptual problem for me. But anyway, so let's not go there today. I'm just throwing it. So do you think that a trans man who is completely physically able to do the service, but also wants to serve his country, why would it be a problem? And has there been any evidence for it's not called Ministry of Defense, how is it called in US?
The Defense Department of Defense?
Yeah, Defense Department, yeah. So is there any evidence in the Defense Department that transgender persons are not performing in the army as the others? So that would be my problem. So in that case, okay. But I had this kind of idea that the executive order was totally Russian political, so it was not based on some kind of evidence to show that this is a problem.
Well,
Sorry.
One of the quotes that Pete Hegwith came out with was that the transgender community in the military reduces the military's lethality. And I think I would agree with that in the sense that lethality is produced by the synergy of people, and I'll even say men, working together in a collective team to do something that is considered by society abhorrent, but doing it in a methodological way in which you can achieve the greatest amount of lethal success with the least amount of effort. And I think that the idea of the trans community joining in that, on its face, it seems fine. Adding individuals that have great ability, who are talented people, and putting them together, there should be no issue. But society would be a lot of evidence I would provide right off the bat, has shown that men and women have existed for thousands of years. Men have existed to make war for 1,000 years. It doesn't mean that it's right, but it proves that it's an effective way of doing business. And there's some earlier I mentioned the idea of having a full-time job, and I think that type of dedication of time away from the military is really the primary argument I'm standing on. Because when you're transgender, it seems, maybe everything I know about transgender is from social media, that you give a great deal of time and input of your time to your and what you are and how you're unique and different. And that is not remotely what the military is designed for. It's designed for uniformity for a reason. Everybody having the same objectives are going to have those same objectives because they have a similar mindset, they have a similar background, they have a belief in society that is the one that they're taking to war with them. And again, are those, educated, mature culture's ideas? I think maybe not, but it's still the unnecessary or the unfortunate truth that the world we live in. We're going to have a military for a long time. And the transgender, again, they may be the transgender individual who is placed in these situations. They're giving so much time to who they are that they're just not a great fit for the military. And that doesn't mean that they're not a great fit for society and anybody should disrespect them as a person. It just means that there are cohorts within the population of the United States that are not ideally suited for the military.
Why do you say that? That they think that they are unique and they are like putting so much emphasis on it?
Like I said, that's basically what I know of transgendered people is from the news or from popular culture or from social media. I don't personally interact with a lot of trans people, not that I would have any problem with that, or working with any trans person, or I don't want to say being in a relationship because that would indicate something that I'm not agreeing with here. But what you're asking is, I don't know what you're asking, honestly.
No, in the sense of how what fueled this idea? Like, is the media talking about that, or
social media? Yeah, all over social media. I'm sorry, I see these little short videos, memes after memes of, obvious looking men dressed with the smallest amount of little girl trim, I don't know, a ponytail perhaps, and acting like she's, 10-year-old girl or something. That's peculiar. And I know that's not trans, but that is tantamount to the same idea of believing that you're somebody that you might not be. From social media, to answer your question.
No, I absolutely. No, and I will come back to the last sentence that you said, because this is really important, and it was also in the executive order. But yeah, of course, in social media we see a lot of transgender and also lesbian and gay persons. I think that sometimes is also a way to to make a stance of your existence. So especially in some societies where you can do it, because there are many societies, like most of them, when you cannot do it, because if you tell it, you risk to be killed in the street. Or I know people who have lived as straight men for 40 years and have kids because the society could not, they could not at all say it. And then they migrated to France, for example, and found a boyfriend, and they are living happily with their boyfriend because France, or I'm just saying France because I'm here now, but it might be Switzerland or it might be Thailand now. So yeah, but when we refer to the military, I don't have any evidence, and I hate, I should not use that word, I think, the word hate, but in the sense that I don't like it when I don't have evidence, but I'm just gonna speculate a little bit. So, is there any evidence that in the army, transgender persons are acting differently from the others, so they are being an obstacle for the well functioning of the specific service or the army in general? So that's what bothers me in what is being said now, not only in the US but also like in Europe, because you know how things go, and especially US. You have this place in the world that you have a great impact in what's going on in the other countries or how things are interpreted. So is there any evidence about this? I'm not sure.
This can be your only pushback, that there's no specific evidence, which implies that some study was done on somebody's personal rights and thoughts in the military. That sounds a little bit draconian, because in order to run an experiment like that, people are going to have to volunteer. Well, you're saying
Not
is
an
there,
experiment. Not an
what evidence are
experiment.
you looking for?
But I mean, evidence like, for example, if there have been sexual harassments in the military, you have the evidence because there have been there was a reporting about it, etc., etc. And I'm sure that if there was some misfunctioning because the person the was a transgender that was doing or was being very visible or was impeding the others to act like they should, I think that there is a report. So is there any evidence like this? I don't know.
I don't know either. Everything
And
that I think about this argument comes from how inflated it has been in the media over the last several years. Is that evidence? No, but it's those are indicators that there are a lot of people that are concerned with these issues, and they everybody wants to have a resolution, and they want it to lean their direction, and that's always going to be a point of conflict with every issue known to man. But the original question, I mean, I don't mean to cut you off, but you went over a lot of ideas without no chance to respond, and I'll just respond to one. You told me this story about these two men that they lived together in Paris and they had their wonderful life. Good for them. Nobody is arguing that. The question is, should those men join the military and act as the service that protects the entirety of the country? We'll say the United States here because that's the issue that's at hand. And there have been issues with a great deal of society having a problem with transgender issue with people. And people in the military come from the general populace. So if we surmise that the same percentage of people have an issue with transgender based on the size of the transgender community, we all know it's very small compared to the entirety. It seems to me that it's not entirely logical to try to create a situation just for that unit, that small group of people. Because again, the military is meant to be built out of people that are willing to not only sacrifice for their country, but sacrifice their social, the way they broadcast themselves, and keep a very small footprint and live a quiet life that is somewhat uniform and not bogged down with other obligations. People just having a pizza delivery business in the military can get in trouble because that type of moonlighting is sought as something that takes away from the attention of the individual, their time off, the rest they're getting, their health, obviously the finances. The military hasn't got around there yet. They're still not paying a lot of money, but that's okay. So the question is, the people in the military, they can be in society or they should be in society. Be what you want to be in society. But the military has specific requirements for what makes it successful. And yes, they do have evidence of what has made them successful. That's military bearing, that's characteristics and morals that they find to be the most beneficial to a cohesive unit.
But shouldn't I have the right as a transgender woman, I mean, let's say, hypothetically, you know that I'm not a very, I'm not a warrior in the normal sense of it, but if I wanted, to protect my country and that if I'm able physically, shouldn't I have the right? So that's my question. And I agree totally in what you say that especially in the military, when in our society, it's so difficult to accept minorities because this is how our societies works. And let's say, I don't know if you agree, but for me, it's obvious.
I do not agree with that.
No, wait. You don't even know what I have to say. I'm saying that our societies are patriarchal and we know that. So that there is no doubt there. So, and especially in the military, it's even more obvious in the sense of because we have this idea that men are those who should fight, which I don't agree, because I don't think that it's fair to put all these heavy weight only to men. And maybe this is because I'm a feminist and I don't think that things should be so clear cut. So I agree on that it's difficult. But I also think that we have to change. If we stay, like you said, for hundreds and hundreds of years that were being done just by men. And I'm not really sure about that because Jeanne d'Arc, you know, that she was a young girl here in France and she is one of the most famous warriors and commanders of French armies. So I don't know, how do you say it in English?
Joan
How?
Joan
Jean of?
Joan of
Oh,
Arc.
Joan of Arc. Okay. So, yeah. I mean, but shouldn't we make some efforts to change things? That's my problem. That's why we are human, and that's why we are Homo sapiens, and that's why we are social beings in order to change and not stay when at the stage of, I don't know, middle ages. Yeah.
So I'm going to answer some of those questions. I guess the two main ones. Do you have a right to be in the military? According to the military, you do not have a right to be in the military. It's a privilege, and it's a privilege granted to those that have the things that they need. Because remember, the military is not a business that is selling Nerds candy or Monster energy drinks. Military is designed to be a lethal force. So it's unfortunate to say there are people who are not physically or mentally qualified. And I think, honestly, one of the arguments, I don't know if I agree with it, but one of the arguments is that trans people are not mentally qualified because they have had a challenge of finding who they themselves are, finding out who they are in relation to everybody else. And the military wants people who already know who they are, who aren't who aren't using crucial time to make that development, but they know who they are and they're ready to be a productive member of whatever unit they are in the military. So no, it's not right. It's just simply not the case, and it might be an unfortunate case, but it's obvious to most people, I think. So it's a privilege. And do trans people have the privilege? Yes or no? I don't know. Maybe yes, maybe no. And a second question you ended off on there was, what were you just talking about? I think you had mentioned Joan of Arc, and what was the issue there?
No, in the sense that it's not only men who should bear the weight of fighting.
Yeah. So I would tend to agree with that philosophy, but society isn't at that point yet. And I think the third thing now I was going to talk about is the idea that the military is people that are from the society. Pretty obvious idea. But that doesn't mean that the military is composed of every single person of a society, because there are going to be groups of people from a society that are beneficial to themselves and to others, and people in a society that are not. And ideally, the military wants people that are beneficial to themselves, their society, their military, and so on. So that is kind of like a misnomer of the idea of the military, that it encompasses everybody. If that was the case, there would be murderers in the military. I guess I mean criminal murderers in the sense that people from jail. So other than that, there's other issues that we haven't even touched on. Issues of like logistics. I mean, do we need 3 bathrooms now? Do we need 4 bathrooms? Do we need a bathroom for every single gender? I mean, okay, we're going to the realm of ridiculousness, but the bathroom seems like that's where the conflict happens for LGBTQ people.
Why? I don't understand.
I hear the idea of men using the women's restroom, and then women get upset with that. And you might not be the perfect person to answer that question to follow up with logic. But I'll ask you the question. When you're in the restroom, a multiple person restroom, and we'll say it's a female restroom, when a transgender man comes in there, does it bother you?
It's not a transgender man, it's a transgender woman. So it means that it's someone who was assigned.
How do you know I'm not talking about a woman who's dressed as a man? I wasn't,
That would be a very specific case, and that specific case, I mean, let me be a little bit mean, is that would not really change the fact that I have been mostly aggressed by men who considered themselves as straight, then by someone who was assigned, I don't know, that is a man but is dressed as a woman. So that's not being mean, that's being real, but in the sense that yes, I'm targeting just straight men. And I don't want to do that quite often because you know very well that I don't think that feminism is against men, but it's against the system. And this I'm never gonna get tired of repeating because this is it. There are so many women who are as patriarchal and as oppressive as men. So for me, if you are a woman and if you behave in this way, your vagina it's not gonna save you. So let's but going back to the bathrooms, I mean, I think that I've mentioned this, the example of Iceland several times, that the bathroom,
Yeah.
it's common
In previous conversations.
so it's common for everyone, and also in other countries you have the same. I think that in some places when I was visiting Seoul, you have the same bathroom for men and women, and there was not a problem. So I don't see why, for such a small percentage of society, which is less than 1%, doing this huge thing. Like, can we be a little bit more proportionate on our, I don't know, claims or worries, or I don't know. So that's a problem. And on the other side, knowing you, I know that you really don't care. I mean, you are as strong as not caring which bathroom you are using. So I don't think that the other soldiers will have that problem. So I think that the bathroom in the military, it's not really the problem. I know that I mean, I don't know how it is in US, so I'm not going to judge, but from some discussions that I've had with people here in France, they say that in the military you use what we call a very sexist and macho language. Can I use these words? I don't know. So when you say all the times these pussies or this, it means that they are very weak or etc. etc. I don't agree with it, but okay, let's say
A lot of society says that, not just.
yes,
Right?
absolutely. Yeah, no. So I'm referring to France now, and I don't know if it's the same, but I mean
What does
because
that mean? What does
this
that
is no, in the sense that we know that military is we have this kind of language that I consider as sexist, but it's something that is there and it's not going to change from now and tomorrow. So I think that this might be more of a problem for people like transgender or gay or girls rather than the bathroom. So that was something that I wanted to say. So for me, the bathroom is the least of the problems. But I mean,
You
you
actually,
say because
I assume you're talking about me and how I feel about it. And how I feel, obviously I have in my opinion, but I'm asking the question in respect of everybody. There are females in the military as well. So my question is, are they okay with it? And if they're any kind of reflection of society, a high percentage of people have indicated that they're not okay with it. So that's already a question in my mind. But you made me stumble on something that I've thought about a long time ago, and it might be relevant here. So here we go. I was always fascinated by the idea that the military puts all the men together separately and all the women together separately, and you can watch each other shower and watch each other use the restroom if you really choose to, and that's the way they want it. The idea is that they're not having sex because sex is an issue in the military. Men and women get together, even in the military, and that's always been a problem. And the military doesn't want that for one reason or the other. So the idea that you're including men in the men's bathroom or women in the women's bathroom or whatever you want to call those shared rooms, that is going exactly against what the military has tried to set up by separating the sexes. And I doubt that's a big part of their decision-making process, but it's clear it's been instrumental in the past because we have men's and women's restrooms. But just to finish off, I wasn't speaking about just me. There are other people that are uncomfortable sharing a bathroom with an opposite sex person. And I can even say, as a man, I don't really want to share the restroom with a woman. There's some things that my man body needs to do on its own. So that's all I have to say on that. But I think some of the bottom line things on what the military wants is just contrary to the ideal that a lot of trans people have, which is their trans is the biggest part of who they are, and that is the center of the universe of who they are. And when you have that mentality and you drag it into, and you bring it along with you to your professional self, some professional organizations work better with that and some don't, and some work worse. And I think the military is just an example of a place that it does not work as well in. It's plain and simple.
I mean, if that was true, I might agree. Also, because I don't think that any group it's better or more special than others. So, and I think that that's one of the problems that we have, that we put hierarchies between different groups in the society, and I just don't like it. So,
You
I
like
think
it doesn't mean it's not necessarily
I know, I
true or what's
know.
happening.
I'm not sure that it's so much true in the sense that I don't see transgender people going around and bragging that they are transgenders. I mean, and I don't know why that would be something so special. I think that it requires quite a lot of strength. First of all, to admit and to yourself and to your environment and family and relatives and society and community that you're doing something that most, as you say, most of the society does not appreciate. So maybe that might be something good for the military, to have persons that have this strength and that they decided to take this step that other people haven't taken, and they are also so sincere. I mean, doesn't the military need these persons that are so true to themselves, contrary to what the executive order was saying, that were really emphasizing the falsehood? Because, as I said, as again quoting the executive order, a man who claims to be a woman, it's the end of the world. I mean, the end of the world, this is me that I'm saying. It was not the executive order. So I think that you have there some very strong persons. And when I was talking about the right, and you said that it's a privilege, and I agree, nobody, I mean, I think that we should all have the right, but then we should, I would love, but I know that I cannot be a soldier because I'm not so tall, I'm not so strong, etc., etc. So I would fail the first exercise. But someone, a transgender man or a transgender woman, who can go up to, I don't know, not maybe a Navy SEAL, because I know that it's extra difficult, but a little bit like lower levels, why not have the right to do that after going through all the exams and passing these exams, or I don't know how they are called, tests, etc., etc.? Why not?
Well,
Just because of being transgender?
clearly,
That it's kind of...
clearly we need to talk about this a little bit more. And I'm going to ask a somewhat sarcastic question just to close this out for this session. But what evidence exists that we do need these special characteristics of transgender people? Sarcastic.
No evidence. No
Right?
evidence.
I know. I mean,
So, but
I
I
think
mean...
you're creating a theoretical skill set and individual for a situation that might not exist yet. And I know that if there's anything the military is good at doing is finding solutions for unique problems. So maybe at that time the transgenders will be, sought after to do that specific role. I don't know if that role exists yet. So we have to work with what adversary we're dealing with at the time. So.
And wouldn't it be great to have the military setting the examples of being so inclusive?
No. And we'll talk about that next time. It's not the military's job to advertise.
No,
what
but
society
it
should
would be
We're not
great.
creating a social construct.
Can you imagine the impact that could have in the society?
Yeah.
My goodness, that would be
Elvis
fantastic.
FP impact. Anyway, appreciate the conversation, and I think we should talk about it a little bit more. Thanks for having me, Mira and Gregg.
Yeah. And we will try to keep it, I think, like this, not very fighting, no, aggressive. How do you say? Yeah. And try to respond to what's happening, but making also different references. I mean, we will focus on political things, but I love books and Greg loves books. So I think that we should use some of our Russian references, Russian author references that I love, Tolstoy and everything to, I don't know, to bring some more spice in our discussion. We're not going to replicate what the media is saying word by word. So I think, yes, we should do that.
Aspect. Okay, well.
No, not,
Russian.
I mean, the Russian and the French and whatever, but I mean, I love the Russian classics. So I said I come from a former communist country. What do you want me to do?
All right, until next time.
Bye bye.
Bye-bye.